In this section, we're going to start by talking about how we can do authentication. This is going to take us through a tour of actually sending a request to the internet, being able to log in and sign up, actually going through a flow of like how we should get a screen to change based on whether or not we've already been logged in. And so we're going to actually spend a bit of time also building some UI. In this video in particular, we're going to start off by building in our login and sign up views. So let's go to our storyboard. And once we're inside our storyboard, we're going to start by adding a new view controller. So let's toss one on here. And what we're going to do, if you could imagine what this should look like, is we should have a label, we should then have some text boxes, and then we should have a button. So let's throw in a label. So we're going to add username, add this to the middle, and we're going to get a text field. Once we've added our text field, we can then copy it, and we can actually copy both of these and then move them right below. And so we have now our password and password field. Let's actually make these a little closer. I think I like how that looks better. Now immediately you should be thinking, well, what about our sign up button? And also, what about some constraints? Well, we're actually going to get to that. So let's throw in our button. I'm actually going to make the button about the same width. Let's actually zoom in a little bit to make this easier to see. Right? So we can see left side. And what we're going to do now is change this to be, we want the inside to be blue. So not tint, we want the text color to be white actually. And we want the background, so let's click on our button. Oh, we lost it for a second. We want our background color to be slightly different. So let's go get our background. And why don't we make the background blue? Let's just close this, have our button selected. And if you ever lose something on the screen, just look on the left side. And let's just grab our background. So let's change the background to some other color. We're going to make this blue. That looks right. So now let's add some constraints very quickly. You should be really good at doing this at this point. So we want this to be center of the screen. So do we want it vertically centered or horizontally centered? Make it horizontally centered. We're going to then define how far up it should be. So not leading space, we want, what do we want? Top space. The width and the height seem appropriate. And we're going to do the same thing for everyone. So horizontally, to get it in the center, we're going to have to give this a specific width and a height. So let's add some vertical spacing. Let's also give it some width. Let's also give it some height. Let's go and edit those two. So let's grab the width and the height. I want the width to be something like 200. Let's make that a little bit bigger. 250, maybe 300. That looks about right. Let's do the next one. Vertical spacing. I'm just doing it out of order to show you something different. Width, height. Doesn't matter the order I'm doing it. It's that I have to remember to put everything in it. And then we actually want the same thing here. So let's do our width. Let's do our height. Let's go to horizontally center it. Notice that I keep making constraints from one thing to the next. Now, so let's actually fix something we just did. We don't want horizontal spacing, we want vertical spacing here. Let's go and edit the constraints. So let's notice height's about the same, that's great. Width is not, let's make this 300. Excellent, that looks good. One last thing, finally. Now, we could think about, we might want to do the reverse. From the bottom, we're then going to horizontally. We're then going to give it a width and give it a height. And we could think about the button probably could be about the same width. Could be a little small if we want to, but that looks fine. So just a quick review on how we could do some constraints. Now we're going to quickly create a new view controller. We've done this quite a bit now. We're going to call this sign up view controller. It's going to be a UI view controller. I'm going to just place it in here. Now, if you think, what's the next step? Immediately connect it to your storyboard. So let's get our sign up view controller. Once we have these two connected, we can now start to create our IB outlets. So let's click. Let's open the assistant editor and let's drag a couple on. Now think about this. What are the things we actually want to interact with? We want the username text field. We also happen to want the password text field. And this one's a little different because we want the button, don't necessarily want to actually like read anything. I want to interact with it. And so this is going to be an action. It's going to be an IB action. We're going to call this sign up button pressed. Also, just noticing, we probably shouldn't have this just saying button. It should probably call sign up. Excellent. So notice, slightly different. It has an IB action. Also, one thing you should have noticed with this action is that basically we did something called it's touch up inside. It's the type of action we got. Now to kind of just show you that and to dig into it for a second, let's click on our button and let's click on the connections inspector. It actually shows us our outlets here and actions. So this is touch up inside, right? That is basically the idea of you touch the button and you've released. And so it's meant to mimic the way that a button you expect to work. Notice that there are a couple others in here. So now that we've gotten that to work, well, let's gotten the basics of that, here's what we want to do. Now, to make things easier, I'm going to just simply move this over to my new view controller, just so when it starts up, we get to here. So if I run my application, we should get right to here. In the meantime, what we want to do is we want to be able to just see, do we get the right username information and password information? So how we're going to do this is we're going to grab our username text field dot text. We want to see those values. So notice what's happening here. If we are able to press this button, we should get whatever is typed inside of it. So let's run this. And in a moment, we should see. So I'm going to type Waldo was here. Now notice something. Shouldn't be seeing my password. That's not fun. But we can get this. Now how do I go and fix that? Let's go to the storyboard. Let's click on the text field. And you're going to notice something very, very cool here. We can actually define the type of text field. So if you look down below, there's actually a bit of information you can customize about it. You can customize the border, the font size. But notice, secure text entry. So let's actually run this again. And let's see what it gives us. So let's try Waldo was here. Excellent. And we still got it. So in the next video, we're actually going to take this further. I'm going to do a little bit of work for you and create our login view controller because it's going to be identical.